Hey, what's going on, traders? Hope you guys are doing good today. So I'm actually going to do a special request video. So I received a message from another trader who asked me about certain aspects of my chart book, and basically he said, I just watched your video, your live streaming video, and you go over some interesting concepts. I posted a comment under the video, can you do a tutorial on how you built the chart? I'm really interested in building your DOM and the numbers, bars, calculator, and the quote board. He says, unfortunately, I'm bad at building charts on Sierra charts. I'm going through tutorials, but they don't seem to give instructions on how to build custom DOMs and numbers bars I didn't know existed. Thanks in advance. All right, guys, so in this video, I'm gonna go through a few aspects of my layout. So let's get to it. If you enjoyed this content, just smash the like button because it really helps with the algorithm. So the first thing I'm gonna do is fire up the trading platform, and you will notice that this is the greatest charting platform of all time. In case you didn't know this, the greatest trading platform of all time. You can load a million chart books and the thing will never crash. So the thing is loading now, and I have around 5 chart books that are meant to load as soon as I open the platform. Actually 6 chart books to be even more precise. One of them is an emergency chart book that only has a DOM in it. So what I'm actually going to do is use my main chart book for this example, and we're going to go through a few different aspects. I'm going to talk to you about my DOM and how I have it configured and certain charts. You know, I might not be able to go into every little detail of every little setting in Sierra charts because you guys already know that Sierra charts is a very complicated platform and you can pretty much do almost anything. You can basically do anything in Sierra charts. If you have an idea for a chart, you will be able to do it in Sierra charts if you put in the time to really conceptualize it and figure out how to do it on the platform. So that's it. Let's get to the chart book. Okay, so this chart book is not very complicated. All it is basically is the NASDAQ. So we have the NASDAQ, which would be the NQ here, futures contract, and on the left of that I have the same market, but it's the micro futures contract, both displayed in the form of a price ladder. So we have bids and offers displayed vertically that way. And as you can see, there's a few charts on the screen on the left and on the right of these depth of markets. I'll just basically explain to you certain things that are going on over here and how I managed to configure them. So believe it or not, this DOM is not really different from the traditional DOM that you get when you open a brand new DOM in Sierra charts. All I've actually done really is changed around the colors of the DOM. That's one thing I've done that makes it appear visually different. I've highlighted certain things, like I've set it so that it's highlighting the bid and ask on the price scale, and it's highlighting the last traded price on the price scale as well. So the way you do that is actually very simple. You go into chart and graphic settings. All of the settings in regards to the color settings of the DOM and highlighting the bid and ask, like I just described to you, will be in the graphic settings, colors, and widths. In regards to the size of the text, that's going to be in fonts. And of course the font itself, I use Microsoft Sans Serif. I've tried a few others, but really this one seems to be the cleanest one that I never had a problem with, so I just kept it that way. In regards to the settings here, you know, you might have to take some time to really go and figure out exactly which parameters you need to change to get the exact colors that you want to get. But I'll highlight a few of them for you right now. The first thing that's important is the text color. The next thing that would be important is the grid lines. The next thing that I would find is important is the trade DOM column separator lines. So this is the color of the middle line that is separating your DOM right there. So the line between the current traded bid and current traded ask columns, that little dotted line there, you can see I have it set to a dotted line. And then we go into the individual columns, colors, and backgrounds. So buy column background, sell column background. And it's going to definitely take you some time to configure these things the way you like them. Unfortunately, guys, I don't really send out chart books to random people, but maybe if you ask really nicely, I'll do it. If you send me an email, I'll send you this chart book or whichever one you want. Hopefully that will save you some trouble and you'll kind of get an idea for how to set things up. Honestly, some traders are just too lazy to set things up themselves. So either you have two choices. It's either you want to pay someone to do it for you or just get some people to send you chart books and steal their chart books, as long as you don't send them to everybody out there. So whatever. Okay, so you see how the DOM has 2 separate colors, one below the current trading price and one above the current trading price. That's these 2 settings right here, trade DOM ask background and trade DOM bid background. It's like a little visual quirk that they have going on, but it basically allows you to have two separate colors below and above the current trading price. I thought that was cool, and the default DOM setting in sierrachart does have that already. Okay, I'll just briefly show you which parameters you need to highlight the bid and ask on the price scale there. Okay, so the first setting is right here. It's kind of hidden in the middle of all the color settings. It's right here. Trade DOM, best bid and ask box background. So that's what the color is, highlighting the spread of the market, the bid and offer. So I've set it to white and I have it enabled. Make sure you check the enable button, then you apply that. Then you're gonna go down a little bit here and find these settings right here. Last price, text, bid trade, ask trade, and the background of both of them. So you enable them. As you can see here, ask trade, I've set it to green. Bid trade, I've set it to red. These are basically the standard colors in sierrachart. You can see that standard red and the standard green. And this is just, a way to visually highlight the last traded price. I enjoy it. I find it makes a difference for me visually to see what I'm trying to see. Background, I've set it to black for the last traded price. And that's it. Okay, so we're gonna move away from the colors settings now. And we'll talk about a few things. So in regards to buttons and hotkeys for these DOMs, I do have a couple hotkeys that I use most often. The one I use most often is clear recent traded bid and ask columns. That one I press very often. Okay, the other button I use is to clear these volume profiles individually. This profile right here is showing the delta. So it's basically the ask volume minus the bid volume. It's the current delta of the market, and I refresh that because it's just a quick way of filtering that out. If you want to see exactly how I have that set up, I'll show you in the study settings itself of this DOM. So as you can see, I do have a couple of other overlays on this DOM. Okay, there's a few of overlays from other charts in this chart book, and we can get to that as well as the video goes on here. This is volume by price right here. And I just have it set to this right here, 2 ticks per volume bar from start date time to end. And this volume profile will default to this setting when you use the volume by price reset button. So that's a quick note. No matter what you set this to, I can set this to any setting right here, okay, and apply it. And what's gonna happen when I press the volume by price reset button is, you'll see, watch, I reset it. Now let's go back to there. And you'll see that it has reset to from start date time to end. So that's what the volume by price reset button does. It simply resets your volume profile to whatever the time frame of your DOM is. The way you set your time frame of your DOM is in the chart settings itself. So I've pressed F5 to get into the chart settings. And so you can see that I have set this DOM to a 30-second time frame, meaning that when I press the volume by price reset button, it's going to reset it to whatever has traded here in the last 30 seconds. Alrighty, let's talk briefly about the studies I have overlaid on this DOM. So the studies I have overlaid are basically standard deviations and value area high and low, which are coming from 2 separate charts entirely. One of them is coming from the chart on the right side here. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not really using these to trade. All I use it for is to kind of get a gauge for the volatility in the marketplace, and also to display it on my DOM because it helps me to visually see approximately how far away my orders need to be. As you can see here, those standard deviations are appearing on this range chart right here. And again, that's one of the genius functionalities of the platform sierrachart, is the ability to overlay studies from other charts onto any other chart in your chart book, including your DOMs. Now, I guess that brings us to this chart right here. So I'll explain to you these standard deviations. It's basically a range bar chart. So it's a very simple range bar chart. It's set to a 20 tick range, but I often change it to 16 to 20. These standard deviations are appearing on the chart, and it's this study right here. Study subgraph standard deviation. That's the name of the study in sierrachart. You can find it. And I have it set to length of 21 bars and 1 standard deviation. And the other one is set to 21 bars, but 1.5 standard deviations. Just so I can get an idea of the overshoot, or what I call a half standard deviation. There's different ways that traders interpret this data. In this video, I'm not really going over how I interpret the data. I'm just kind of showing you how I have it set up in my chart book. So on this chart, you can also see that there is another standard deviation, and I would believe that this is the more important standard deviation. And actually, the ones that I've plotted on the price scale, I only plotted them there to see if I could get them to line up with this standard deviation down here. So this standard deviation right here, you can't actually choose to set it to 1 or 1.5 or 2 standard deviations. The study in sierrachart is simply called standard deviation. I've also set it to 21 bars, and it's based on the last traded price. Now, if we zoom out of the chart really quickly here, you will see that the standard deviation will vary quite a lot depending on the volatility in the marketplace here. And one thing I've done to smooth this data out a little bit is I've actually applied a simple moving average to the standard deviation itself, which in turn is meant to smooth out that data so I don't get these spikes in the standard deviation where, because we've had a drastic one-sided move in the marketplace, what is happening there is it's skewing the standard deviation indicator because the standard deviation is predicting, for example, 5 points, and then all of a sudden the market moves 20 because we see an outlier move or a breakout type of movement. And now the standard deviation is skewed in the favor of that move. So it makes sense that the indicator is going to display a value that is potentially out of line with actual volatility in the marketplace. So that's why I've plotted the moving average on top of the standard deviation, just to smooth out the data when we have those drastic shifts there. So again, something you can only do in Sierra charts. You cannot do that in another platform. Apply an indicator onto an indicator. Again, it's just genius if you ask me. So those standard deviations on the DOM are coming from this chart right here. Now this right here, these little purple highlights on my DOM, they're coming from another chart. And all I really did, actually this was just an experiment I had, so I guess I can kind of skip over it, but basically I have a 15-second chart somewhere else in this chart book. I think it's hidden away somewhere. I have this set to a 15-second chart, and I've overlaid volume profiles on this. I have a volume by price study, and the volume by price is every 45 seconds that pass. And what I'm doing is I'm highlighting the value area high and low of that 45-second volume profile, and I'm overlaying that onto my DOM. Now, if I lost you there, don't worry. Probably everybody's lost here. That's why I love Sierra Chart, because it allows you to conceptualize order flow and trading data on a much deeper level. At least for me, I've been able to conceptualize order flow and strategy development in ways that I never would have thought of before using Sierra Charts. That's why Sierra Charts is the best in my opinion. It's a 45-second profile. It was just an experiment to overlay that on the DOM. I was just playing with the overlay feature, but that's basically where it's coming from, okay? Now, very simply here on the left side of my screen, this is just a 5-minute chart. And the goal of this chart is just to simply show, in case I have not been watching the market, to show where the last traded volume has been over the last, minute, a couple of minutes, basically. For example, if I was not watching the live trading that just happened, looking at this chart right here, well, basically tells me that we had some absorption at the 65s, and now we're trading down at these 59s. And prior to that, we were trading at 74.5s to 75s. Now, on an intraday basis, I do use this data to make trading decisions off of. Again, the way I have this chart set up was based on a design for a chart that a mentor sent to me. And I'm going to show you what that chart looks like on my other screen. A very similar looking chart right here, as you can see, except that this chart is not time-based. It's based on a point and figure, or what some would call reversal bars. Now, what I think is really important about this chart is that it's really clear to identify the liquidity pools in the market, or basically where the market is trading the most volume. And it's not time-based. So, for example, sometimes my 5-minute chart is not very clear, where the volume is being dispersed at multiple prices, and I can't quite clearly see where we have been trading or where we're trading right now. I'll switch over to this chart really quick just to get a visual idea of how that volume is being displayed at various prices, simply because this chart is not time-based, it's rotation-based. The way I have this chart visually configured is that, well, number one, the point of control of the bar is being highlighted, which is not a big deal, but actually more importantly here, the way the colors are set up is as follows here. So I have the dark colors at the ends and the light colors in the middle here, and basically what that does is the prices that trade the most volume get highlighted with a very dark color on the chart, and this is just a great way of highlighting those liquidity pools on the chart, basically. So it's just a way for me to visually see those things a little bit easier. Okay, so in regards to the text on these bars, you can see that it's based on the ask volume bid volume difference, so the delta, and the text coloring method is set to volume percentage. So I don't really look at the text too much, but sometimes, especially on the time-based chart, you can clearly see where some of this absorption is taking place. And sometimes it takes zooming in a little bit, but it's basically just a clear way of seeing that. And again, you'll be able to see this clearer on a thicker market that moves less ticks. For example, we're looking at NQ here, and when NQ, for example, you get those really volatile days where the range is like 20, 30 points, you're really not going to be able to zoom in and see the absorption at every single price point. And honestly, I would argue it doesn't even matter at that point when it's moving that much. What you would do in that case is you would increase the tick size of your chart, or the volume at price multiplier. That's something that everybody needs to know about, in my opinion, if you're a day trader. is that depending on the volatility of your marketplace, you may need to adjust the tick size of your DOM or the volume at price multiplier. So as you can see here on the DOM, for example, my volume at price multiplier is set to 2, which means that I'm not actually seeing volume at price for every price here. I'm seeing it for every 2 prices. Because this market is thin, that 1 tick increment is not as important as it would be in a thicker market, for example. So as markets get more volatile, you will need to increase this to a higher number in order to smooth out that data and to get it into a more readable fashion, basically. So if all of a sudden the ranges in this market expanded to be, 30, 40, 50 point ranges, what you would simply do is you would go into the chart settings, F5, and change the volume at price multiplier to higher than 2, maybe 5, 10, etc. And you might even consider changing the tick size, but I haven't gotten to that yet. If we ever reach a point in markets where things really get crazy volatile, then we might have to start using higher tick sizes as well. Alrighty guys, so if you made it this far, if you enjoyed this content, just remember to smash the like button, subscribe, and if you have any other suggestions for video content, leave them in the comments down below. Last but not least, we're going to get to this chart here in the middle. Now, this chart is an idea that I got, again, from a mentor who showed me a lot of stuff from trading NASDAQ. And all I'm essentially doing here is I'm displaying the volume and the ask volume minus bid volume, aka the delta, on a 15-minute time frame. I'm showing 6 bars worth of that data. This right here is just simply another way of reading time and sales. All I'm seeing is the volume that is trading and the delta of that volume. It's essentially the same thing as if you were to read it on a time and sales, except that it's being displayed in this manner right here. As you can see, there is no time and sales on my screen. If you refer to some older videos I've made, there were time and sales. I used to look at time and sales, but I've made the choice that I can look at time and sales perfectly fine simply by looking at the current traded volume accompanied by the delta. And I can see the delta right here next to the DOM on a vertical basis, as well as on a time-based scale right here, okay? So I definitely look for fluctuations in the delta and the volume on a certain time basis. That helps me to know when I should be potentially staying out of trades or what types of movements I should be looking to trade on the back of. Now, I'll show you briefly how I configured this chart here. So this chart actually is using a total of 4 chart regions. Now, in Sierra charts, that's another great feature, is the ability to split up your chart into multiple regions. So first we're going to go into the chart settings of this chart. I hit F5, and then we're going to go to advanced settings, and near the bottom of this you can see chart region. Now I have chosen to put the main price graph of this chart in chart region 4. As you can see, Sierra chart will allow you to have up to 12 separate chart regions in this case. Now, honestly, I don't even need this chart. I'm not looking at it. So maybe I need to remove it off of my screen entirely. It just so happens that for this video, it's in chart region 4. And the reason for that is because I wanted to get the 2 indicators, which are the numbers bars calculated values, in the middle of my screen so that I can visually see everything kind of lined up and I don't have to move my eyes from left to right and get distracted all the time, okay? So what I've actually done with this chart is the instrument of the chart is the micro NASDAQ futures, MNQ. And as you can see here, there's also the same data for numbers, bars, calculated values for the NQ, which would be the bigger NASDAQ contract. Now, some of you are gonna ask, well, how did you get the micros and the minis onto the same chart showing the volume and delta every 15 seconds? That's pretty crafty. How did you pull that off? Well, I'm gonna show you, it's pretty simple. So you put a numbers, bars, calculated values on the chart to start, and that's going to show you this indicator for whatever instrument your chart is set to. So this study right here is showing me the volume and delta for micro NASDAQ, MNQ, and you can see I have it set to chart region 3 right there. All right, we're going to stay in the study settings really quickly, and we're going to go over to this right here, which is a study / price overlay from another chart entirely. And if I click on that, it's coming from this chart right here, NQ 15 second. And we're going to go back to that chart because that was a chart that I showed you earlier in this video. So here we go, 15-second chart for NASDAQ E-mini futures, and you can see that the volume and delta is right there. This is exactly the indicator that I'm overlaying onto the chart on the screen in front of me here, the main screen. So what I've essentially done there is I've imported a study and price overlay indicator, and then you go into the indicator. First, you have to choose which chart the study is going to come from. In this case, it's this one right here, chart number 1, NQZ 15 second. And then you go and find the study on that chart that you want to overlay onto your new chart. In this case, it's the numbers, bars, calculated values. And you click on it, and then everything should be totally fine. And I have it in chart region 2. So that's pretty much it. Now on top, I have a clock, and that's really simple. I just use the clock real-time indicator, and I have that in chart region 1. That's how I managed to get this image displayed here. And again, a lot of it is just kind of tinkering and experimenting with stuff and seeing, you know, how I can pull stuff off in the sierrachart platform. So as you can see, guys, anything is possible in this platform, and any which way that you can conceptualize when it comes to displaying market data information, there is a very high probability that it is possible using the sierrachart platform, and you will be able to display this information in a very ergonomic and efficient way on your screen, and use your screen real estate very effectively. And that's pretty much it, guys. So, you know, you can argue that, you know, some of the things on my screen maybe are not useful, but honestly, for my trading approach right now, they are useful. And I could make you a video explaining how I use each and every one of these pieces of information in my own trading strategy. But that might be for another video completely. So I wish you guys a fantastic day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. Bye.